if I were a Muslim and I've been nominated for the Muslim Achievement Award, I would feel insulted. I would feel insulted because having a Muslim Achievement Award implies that one is good for a Muslim, not that one is good. The second reason why I would not accept this award is because this award, it encourages segregation and stereotypes in society towards minorities. If one is nominated for an award because of something that does not influence how good one is. An award for autistic people, where autism really is something that can affect academic achievement, is something different than awarding someone an award because they have a different skin colour, because they believe in a different religion. It implies that if they were part of the majority, they would not have gotten that award. They only got that award because they are part of the minority, because they are different. And that in fair competition with people of other religions and other skin colours, they wouldn't stand a chance. That is insulting. And that is not a good thing for society to accept, because it does not encourage integration. It encourages segregation. When people look at the award nominees, or the people who come in question, they don't see academic equals, they see people of different religions, and they see that they have to give a special award to someone just because they have a different religion, just because they have a different skin colour. And that is not acceptable. In the view of the majority, this is just as bad. The majority sees that this person who perhaps was had a lesser academic achievement, but got the award because there are less Muslims and therefore less competition, and it is therefore easier to get the award. No, thank you. They see that this person got an award, and they compare it with similar awards that are not awarded to minorities, and they see, wow, that Muslim, he managed to get an award, but he did nowhere near as much work as the person got, as someone else got for an award that wasn't awarded to a certain minority, but to a member of the population as a whole. Yes.
Are you assuming that getting one of these awards is mutually exclusive with getting an award that is awarded to anyone?
No, I'm just saying it's easier to get one of these awards, so it's more likely that one will first get one of these awards. Perhaps if one continues in one's academic career, one can also get another award, but it is the first award one would get, and that is insulting, and it is also, as I have already said, it is easier to get one of these awards because one has less competition, because one is part of a minority, and in an award that is awarded to the general population, there is much tougher competition, so it is unlikely that one will also get the other award. One could, but no, thank you. No. One could also get another award, but it is much more difficult, so it is much more likely that the person the member of the minority that got the award will only have that award. And members of the majority will see that they are treated specially, that just because they are part of a minority, they manage to get this award. They are envious, of course. People want to get awards, and they see that this award is given for a lesser achievement, just because someone is part of a minority. They think that person doesn't deserve it, because it was a lesser achievement.
Why would I, as a nominee, care what the majority thinks?
I would care because part of getting an award is the acknowledgement that one gets in certain academic circles. The Nobel Prize is such an achievement because other people think it is worth something. If the majority thinks this award is worthless, then there's no point to getting the award. If the majority thinks it is easy to get this award, if it is awarded for lesser achievements, they might look down on people who actually get this award. No, thank you. So this encourages the stereotype of the stupid member of the minority. Because these minority
On
awards...
that point, please.
No, thank you. Because this minority award is awarded for a lesser achievement because, as I've already said, there is less competition for it because one is a member of a minority. And this does not send a positive signal for integration and a coherent society where people are accepted for their religion and for their skin colour, and instead it promotes segregation and looking down on foreigners because they believe they are less academically competent, because they believe that in a fair competition like the Nobel Prize they wouldn't stand a chance. Therefore, we would not accept this award. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the floor. I would like to, sorry about the gender mixing. I'm proud to begin our case by with a brief rebuttal towards what the Prime Minister has said so far. Well, the Prime Minister, we heard, began with her statement that if she would be a Muslim, she would be insulted if she got a Muslim Achievement Award, because it would empower the notion that one is good for a Muslim, but not good enough in general. And we believe that such a notion never exists in the first place, and that such an award is not there to accent on the student being Muslim or them being part of any minority as such, but being good enough and being striving enough and being achieving enough within this minority to be able to break the boundaries that this minority sets for them, to be able to break them, to try to strive beyond them. And it is not accenting on the minority itself. And there was no thank you. And an award is not there to cause segregation and isolation. We heard that an award like that would mean that one doesn't stand a chance in an equal competition to other students, which is not true, or to other nominees, which is not true, because as a POI was given, every minority member can also win a general student's prize, and they have an equal chance to compete for those prizes, for the general prizes. Each member of each minority can compete for them, can strive for them, can do their best to achieve them. And the way the government actually suggests this and views the motion is actually the way that encourages segregation. It is not the prize that would encourage and accept segregation, it is this view that the government proposes that would actually cause that segregation, that isolation. Because if we begin viewing prizes as something that is insulting and something that is isolating, then we really have a big problem. No, thank you. Then we talked about how difficult it is and how easy it is to get this and that prize or this and the other prize. Well, to get a general award is equally difficult for everyone, for all nominees, for all who are striving for it. And to get a minority award is also equally difficult for all minority members. And we believe that actually striving for an award like that is, but the most important thing in striving for an award like that is the achievement and the work someone does to actually try and achieve it. And no, thank you. Then we got that point with the majority being envious, the majority finding it bad, the majority wanting to strive for prizes themselves, finding it insulting that someone else could get could get a prize more easily because they're part of a minority. And then we heard the other statement that the majority would find such an award lesser, that they would find it unimportant because it's a minority prize. Okay, well, if a majority finds an award like that lesser and unimportant, why should they be envious? I think that's a contradiction. The majority wouldn't find such a thing. Even in both cases, a majority wouldn't find something like that insulting or be envious about it because if they find it lesser or unimportant, there's no reason for them to do. And if they do not find it lesser or unimportant, then they still have a better chance to get. They still have their chance to strive for those general awards they could, because implementing that minority members can get minority prizes also means that all the other nominees can also more easily strive for general prizes, because then we wouldn't have the minority awards. And then I'd like to move on to our case now, and giving our main points. First of them being that an award, a minority achievement award like that, would be a token of support, a token of appreciation. Because an award is not supposed to be considered as an insult. An award is not supposed to accent on someone being different, on someone being lesser. An award, as we all know, is a token of appreciation and a token of support for those members of the respective minorities. And it's appreciation for that they're trying to break the boundaries of those minorities, that they're striving enough to socialize, they're striving enough to be just as good, they're striving and they're giving all their best to actually be as good as the others, because we cannot deny minorities in isolation. There are social processes that just aren't going to vanish, and we cannot banish them just by wishing that this just won't exist, or just by having wishful thinking. This isolation and segregation of minorities will still exist, and an award like that is actually working against that. And an award like that is supposed to show the support for those minority members who are trying to be just as good as the rest, because, as we all know, they usually have some problems integrating into the majorities. They have problems into being accepted by the majorities. They even have problems being communicative. Or, for example, they're supposed to work together with majorities to get general prizes. They still have problems with socialization. So why not give them an award? Why not give them an award for actually trying to be just as good? And our second point is that an award like that will motivate minority members to keep on doing it, to keep trying to be better and to have better achievements and to try to socialize. Because, as I said, it's difficult enough for them. We have an example. Well, there's special prizes for women in a lot of scientific areas, in a lot of universities, and a lot of women, and there's even special rights for women on a lot of scientific boards or a lot of universities too. And this works. Experience has shown that this works. That this motivates women to try and be just as good as men, to try and be just as achieving. So why shouldn't a minority achievement award just as much encourage and support students from minorities to actually achieve something more and be just as good as the general majority? And for these reasons, we believe that an award like that cannot be insulted in any way, but would be a token of support, a token of appreciation, and a motivation for members of minorities to have better achievements. And for these reasons, we beg to oppose.
Honorable judges, honorable speakers. We have 3 points in our discussion. The first one is the psychological point of view of the minority. The second one is that this award is against the idea of competition in economy and in sports, for example. And the third one is just unaccused, just to keep the minorities calm. But first, a quick question to my previous speaker. You said you give the example of the woman. With the women minority that have many advantages in this award. But we think at first women are not a minority, it's always 50-50%. And For example, you can't say that in sports games, for example, that there is, of course, there's you can compare with minorities like Muslims, for example, because there are other conditions, other body conditions in sports games, for example. Another very important point is the problem is with the awards for women. They feel often very stressed because they see, okay, now we have not get this job, for example, or get this aware for its own power. It's just because there is a quote or there's a rule or a law for minority award. That's my point. We think it's very important to look to the psychological point of view of the minority. If always the minority, for example, the children of a minority see, okay, we just get an award for in sports, in school, for example, without being so ambitious like the majority, like other minorities, they feel, okay, we don't have to be so ambitious. We get it in every case, and so this leads to a mention that they think, okay, now why I have to be no thanks, because it's I get the prize in all cases.
Before you move on, please.
Yeah.
What kind of awards are we talking about? Do we also count like an English award awarded to an ethnic minority that has English as their second or even third language, that otherwise would be competing with students having English as their mother language?
No, it's about the award if there is a society and there are many minorities and many people, and then if they have the same conditions and the same power to get into the subject. The problem is these leads these thinking, this psychological learning leads to this, that they feel every time, okay, now we don't have to be so ambitious. And this leads, and to a self-fulfilling prophecy that they think and that they feel, okay, and there's always a gap between our power and the power of the minority, and that leads at all again to prejudices of the minority and minority. The second one is it's against the idea of competition. Even economy or in sports. We all look to Olympic games and we enjoy this. And we see there are many different powers. For example, the Netherlands are good in ice skating, the Russians are good in ice dancing, for example. And we see that's just because and there is a competition, and everyone tries to get the best on their own way. Everyone tries to power itself and to be ambitious as much. But if you say, okay, some groups, some minority gets an award as well, there's no competition. It would be very boring to look at Olympic Games, because they say, oh no, there must not be a competition, and so it harms and it dispowers the power to get the prize and to get the best results. The next one is the economic view. Everyone from us knows that the aim of the economy is to have a balance or a competition of powers. Everyone tries to get the much power as he can to get the best results. And because of this could harm the economy, and this could harm to a lack of economy.
Point of information.
No thanks. The third one is, it could be taken as an excuse just to keep minorities calm. If you say, okay, you can give the award to the minority, and then so it's good, so it's like a relaxing pill, so they don't have to hurry up and don't have to try to get results. No thanks. To get results and to get better results. And there is a high risk that at this point the majority can just take it as a law, as a mechanism to keep the minority calm. I want again go to the point of the competition, and like in the sports, we see in every part, or in the most parts of the life, there is the principle of competition, and there we see you can't just get really good powers, really good results if you if you are really empowered and if you believe that you can be ambitious and not get your results by your own power. Please.
Okay, so you say it's easy for minority members, they believe it's easy to get the awards, so they do nothing to get them. But why do you keep ignoring the fact that they still have to compete with all the other members of those minorities to achieve those prizes? They still have to do something, they have to do work for it.
No, we think on the other side. We think if there is an award, they see, okay, they get a prize, and this could be as a relaxing pill. And it's the normal human behavior that you think, okay, if I get a prize without my own power, without my own mansion or without my own brain, why I have to hurry up, why I have to be ambitious. And that's this, as I told, this psychological point of view. If you see, okay, you get without the highest power, without the highest ambitions, you get the results, you get awards. It harms or it directly leads to this power, your own competition, your own ambitiousness. And because of this, we think this award leads to a lack of competition. It leads to segregate the people again, and so because of this, we are against this award.
Madam Speaker, so first of all, I would like to start my speech with some few points of rebuttal towards my previous speakers, and then I will start my speech with some points. First of all, the points I would say is, first of all, how these minorities are entitled to these awards, and then the second point will be how this award is as fair as other awards, and the third point will be how these awards will be beneficial for these minorities' future. So first, some points of rebuttals. So you say that I will respond to this your point about this this award is against the idea of competition. So wait, this award is as fair as other awards, which I'll elaborate later in my points, because it is still an award, it is still an achievement. So it's not like they're not competing to each other. So this is still a competition, and they are entitled to this award. They deserve this award. So I don't see why not. They're not entitled to this award. Sorry, later. And this and you mentioned about that women are not really minors, so that's irrelevant in this case. But I would say why on earth that is still in the university website we still see on their application part is that women application are still encouraged. Well, there are some reasons why they're putting that in the text, because yeah, women still minorities especially in academic work. I would say that's justified, and at least in academic work women are still less appreciated, I would say. And then this is quite relevant what we're saying here. So first, to my points. So I say that how these minorities are entitled to this award, since it is already difficult enough for these minorities to survive in their academic work, both in schools or in universities. What are the odds that these the majorities, let's say in one German school or one Dutch school, what are the odds that white people got bullied and they got cornered in the room? What are the odds? I mean, the most probable thing that will happen are those Asian kids, me, or or other Muslim guys, or like some other black guys will get cornered, and then they feel excluded. They have to find some seat in the cafeteria because they have no friends and stuff. It is already difficult for them, so I think they are entitled to this kind of work. So it will make them feel better. So they really, have something to be proud of, because okay, I'm good at it. I'm smart enough, at least in my community. So I don't get like why this award are not good enough. Like. And furthermore, they do have like, well, maybe it doesn't apply to all minorities, but they do have like some language barriers as well, especially if I know, like English or German is their second language, or even if like these guys like are born or like have been raised at this country for a while, but still they do still have accent, and the face wouldn't change. I mean, people notice that, I mean, Asian face, I mean, they wouldn't say that I'm European, that it's impossible, and they will still get bullied, they will still get discriminated, because discrimination exists in our community, and it's inevitable, and that's why this award is as entitled, they are entitled to this kind of awards, yeah, okay,
But the meaning of discrimination is you discriminate and you see the different parts of different kinds. And if you say the minority get a special award, it is a different, it's a discrimination because you say, show.
Okay, I get what you want. I get what you want. Yeah, okay. That is kind of related to my second point, because how this award is as fair as the other awards. Because, well, look, this. As I said before, it's not against the competition at all. It's not against the idea of competition at all, since they are still, you know, achieving something at least in their communities. I mean, let's take a look at this whole tournament. Novices are minorities, but still, I'm still proud of breaking it, even though there are only like less than 10 tips here. But I'm still achieving something. You're still bringing it like that first. So why? I mean, so you think these finals are not as fair enough as the other? Well, we're still doing something. We're still achieving something. I think we're entitled to that. So I don't see like what's the problem in here. And that's I mean, my partner already mentioned that's the main meaning of an award. It's meant to be appreciated. Like it's giving me okay, I'm appreciated. You know, of giving this award. It's not supposed to be insulting. I would say getting award. Yeah. Okay. Your point.
Yeah. From the point of majority, for example, all these guys who have a great English language and everything else, what do you think, what do we look like in their eyes as a minority if we
well, people are entitled to their opinions, but it's actually, well, you don't have to really think what other people think. We're still achieving something, we're still doing something. I mean, we're still at best, at least we beat like one team. I know like it's not really a big achievement, at least we beat one team. It's still an achievement, God. I mean, it is not insulting at all. I mean, I'm kind of proud of it. Not in a way, but still, it is an achievement, at least in my community, in Novice's community. I'm still, you know, I'm entitled to that, so I don't see, why not? See, and I think they can be proud of it. They're doing something best at their community, so why not? It will be better for their social life, or like I know, like I can say, like we can say, all right, hey, I'm breaking the Novice final in Leiden. Duh, it's a big tournament. They don't have to know like how big it is. And then my third point, it's beneficial for their future and academically and socially, since, well, if they're applying for, I know, like university or like getting jobs, I mean, it would be like, it would be a plus point. Why, okay, oh, well, this guy, I know, like, achieved something as a best Asian student or like best black student. I mean, it is a plus point. It is beneficial for their future. It is best for their social life. I guess it is something that they can be proud of, and I think it will bring something big to their whole future, and they felt more acceptable. They don't feel excluded anymore. Since as I mentioned in my first point, it is difficult enough for minorities to survive both in academic life and social life. It is hard. So I think this award is as justified as our other awards. It is as good and as fair as other awards. That's why we're opposed to this motion, because first of all, it is these minorities are entitled to this award, and the second, how this award is as fair, and third, all it's beneficial for their future, and that's why we think that opposition band will going to win this debate today. Thank you very much.
Timer?
Thank you for the floor, speaker. So, firstly, I'm going to start my speech with a quick rebuttal on some of the ideas that we heard from the side of the opposition. We want to say that this isn't a debate about awards. This isn't a debate about whether you're going to easily or hardly get an award for literacy. This is a debate of much stronger issue, a debate of identity, and a debate of imposing someone's identity and limiting him in his freedom of choice. Secondly, we think that, as we shall show you from our case, Secondly, we got to stress out that we never really heard from the side of the opposition how does this status quo works for the minority actually. They themselves said they've been exposed to many difficulties and other problems, but they never really shown the mechanism how does this award actually is giving them something of freedom or equality or anything else. I'd also like to stress out at the end of the rebuttal that comparing this situation to minorities or discrimination about women or even debaters, as we heard, that cannot be by any means. Because simply about the debaters or women, we both have some objective criteria that makes us also different. But even if not so, this is the debate of identity, national identity, which is much far complex than everything else. So another rules must be implied for dealing with problems with national identity, and not such as ESL, EFL, or whatever thing that we managed to hear. No, thank you, not now. I'm going to talk about a couple of things here in our structural part. First, we would like to kind of broaden up a bit the story about the psychology of minorities, but later on we'll go to even bigger stakeholder psychology of majorities. So, from a point of minority, as if I can also even put myself into this debate personally, since I feel as some kind of minority being from Serbia here and not being really well integrated into the whole this world and system here, right? So, if someone would ever tell me that, for example, I'm gonna get another break or something like that just because I'm Serbian and not because I know English not so well, or as you can see. But anyway, that's kind of humiliating for me personally. That kind of feel like I'm being imposed to some identity which I might or I might not accept, and therefore I cannot have freedom of choice to express myself how I feel. Living for a long time as a minority in some German or Netherlands or wherever, and being imposed by that same country that I am a Muslim, really strikes me because, for example, because it disables me to encourage me into to self-actualize one of my deepest emotions, and that is national identity. I'm limited to be a German. I'm limited even to be a cosmopolitanism if I want to. You know, for this, it's not even the question of whether I want a German, but the problem is that whatever I want to be, it's not up to me to choose, but the society as itself is putting me into some boundaries. And that's the problem that all the minorities have. That's the core of the problem that all the majorities have in those societies, because they were given up their identity even though they might not want it. But this debate is actually about this thing as far as we've seen, and I'd like you all to be quite focused because this debate is about us or you, as I might say, because I feel myself as a minority. The biggest stakeholder is actually the psychology of majority in this case. Because as I already shown for this argument before, majority is the one who's making the boundaries here, you know. They are the one who are dividing us between me as a Muslim or a Serb or whatever I want to be, and between them who are basically the majority and the carriers of this country or whatever else. So, do you know why actually majority is the biggest stakeholder in this case? Because it's up to them to make the changes in this case. I, as a member of minority, can even, I don't know how, because it's really difficult in these times, but I even can feel as a part of a majority. No, thank you. I even can feel as a German. I can go to German football, soccer games or whatever you want. I can drink beer, I can do anything whatever I want. But I'm not the one who's breaking those walls between me and them. I'm not the one who decides whether I'm going to be awarded only a Muslim award or anything else. But the Muslim award, yeah, the two award things, that actually doesn't change anything. I'm sorry, I'm just putting it now. So the problem is that whether there is only Muslim award or both Muslim and general award for Muslim people, it doesn't change anything because the whole segregation problem it comes out from one this award Muslim still varies all the problems that we're implying here. Now I just want to finish this argument with that. So. Basically, that's why we find that the psychology of majority of German people, for example, I'm sorry for all the Germans, I just like Germany as an example. It's up to them to basically break the walls in their own head, and then only after that we could start off some kind of a dialogue or some kind of assimilation, integration. But it doesn't really even matter what we start. The only thing that we want to finish with is that ruthless imposing identity over some minority that we're doing. Second.
how is exactly the fact that majority may or may not want this award relevant? Whether I, as a first actor, accept the award that has already that I have already been nominated for,
Sorry, come again, but quickly.
like, how does exactly this affect on the fact whether I accept or not an award that already exists and that I have already been nominated for?
I'm sorry, it's not you really, it's my English. Anyway, but let me just finish this, and perhaps I'm gonna answer you by continuing. No, thank you. The thing is that the majority as itself is both children of minority and everything else. They're raising in some kind of atmosphere where the divisions between majorities and minorities are kind of normal, usual things, you know. So they're kind of living into that world of dividing that they themselves brought. And I suppose I'm going to skip this one because of time, but let me start with the final argument, which is like, why me? Because we've already burned ourselves without linking the motion to the story that we've had. So why me? Yeah, I'm going to definitely not take this award as a Muslim or as a Serbian or as anyone else, because I think that it is the most important for a person to live by his ideals and to give an example for everyone else. Especially me, who's already been kind of recognized in society. I could say a bit humble that I'm influential since I already was nominated for this award. I probably got a lot of fellows in both majority and minority which would listen to me, and I suppose that my voice is going to be recognized in both majorities and minorities, that this is not definitely the way of dealing with discrimination and everything else. So yes, I beg all the majority people simply to treat us as the part of the society that we want to be, and to treat us equal, and then let us be whatever we want to be in order to solve all the problems. Thank you.
Madam Speaker, let me clear a few things up. First of all, so far there has been this huge assumption of the proposition that there are lesser standards for minority awards, which there are not, okay? Maybe there's fewer people numerically, but the competition might still qualitatively be just as hard, if not harder, than for normal awards, right? So that's a huge assumption that they've just made, and they haven't explained it, and they haven't justified it. But much more importantly, so far the debate has been ignoring the first actor motion, quite simply, okay? It's not about competition spirit, it's not about what the majority might think, right? It's not about, I'm not going to think if someone offers me an award, I want to take it, right? Because it makes me feel happy and it makes me feel proud. And I'm not going to think about how, like, maybe it will or won't change society whether I go there and accept it and have a couple drinks. And it's not about the psychology of the minority, if anything, right? It's not about the psychology of the minority or the majority, if anything. It's not a debate of national identity. This is a debate, if anything, it's a debate about individual psychology. And individual psychology tells you that when something makes you happy, you do it, unless there are huge, huge harms to you actually doing this, right? So, we're going to tell you that our burden, the debate isn't about, like so far a lot of points have been made about whether to have this award or not, right? But our burden is to show you that as long as me taking the award does not cause massive harm to myself primarily, or like even bigger harm to society, we can take it, and we want to take it because it's an award and it makes us feel happy, yay, right? So, not only am I going to show you how it doesn't cause harm, but also I'm going to show you how it's very positive for my own feelings as a member of a minority, but also because it gives me the opportunity to be a role model for people. And it's good for me, so I'm going to show you that it's good for me selfishly, first of all. Also, I'm going to show you that it's not only this is not insulting, but it's actually acknowledging that I have a different starting point as a member of a minority, and it's acknowledging that despite that different starting point, I have managed to get to the same level as people who had much more privileged conditions earlier in life. And finally, I'm going to show you how it's going to make me happy, because it's going to give me the opportunity to be a role model for other people in the minority and in the minority community that I'm a part of, right? So first of all, and this award, quite clearly, as opening opposition has touched on, is going to be amazing for my career and my future. It's an award, okay? On academic CVs, you have a whole section on awards and grants. So, it's going to give me, if I accept it, and if I can put it on my CV, it's going to give me better future prospects, it's going to give me a higher earning potential, it's going to give me status, it's going to get me, be more likely, for example, in science, to get me grants for studies, etc. It's going to be helpful when I'm applying for master's positions, for doctorate positions, postdocs, etc., right? So, because of those very, very proximate and immediate benefits, I, as a first actor, am going to have a huge issue, like a huge moral issue, for it to trump all those very proximate benefits, for me to decide not to accept it. So there have to be very, very, very strong negative arguments against it, right? And so one of these arguments that the proposition has brought to you is because I would take it because I feel insulted, right? But I'm going to show you how that's not true. I don't feel insulted. I don't feel discriminated against. I feel acknowledged and I feel valued because I feel that it's being acknowledged that I overcame adversity. And this is where, again, I would like to say that these awards have the same levels as, I'll take you in a minute, as any other award, right? But the only difference is that I'm now having my identity recognized, and it's being recognized that I've been discriminated against probably my whole life. And finally, yes, of course, opening government said that the awards is discriminating. Yes, it is. It's positive discrimination, okay? And positive discrimination is what happens when you have a minority that's been treated like crap their whole lives, right? And so they're at this level, and then like the majority of people is at this level. And positive discrimination is useful because it evens out the playing field, and it gives the minority a chance to have these starting disadvantages leveled out, and it gives them a chance to actually be acknowledged for still managing to reach again the same levels as everyone else did, except while overcoming this incredible adversity that sadly we still see minorities facing, because it's statistically, like, it's a fact that black people get into universities less, that like minorities get into universities less, etc. And those are not because they're not as good, it's because they face adversity. And we think that if someone, like, if I as a minority member feel like, okay, finally someone's acknowledging that yes, I had an incredibly hard life, and yes, I'm now still in a really good position, that would make me happy, right? And yes, I will take closing.
You got a simple, nice theory about disbalance between majority and minority and everything, but in this motion we're particularly talking about some intellectual stuff, such as reading, writing, dancing, and something like that. So why do you see a disbalance between majority and minority?
Okay, sit down. We see a statistical disbalance because, and I'm not saying this is not about level, this is about likelihood of achievement in the face of adversity. Okay? Quite simply, when you grow up in low-income brackets, which minorities are more likely to do, when you grow up in a background that's educationally farther away from the privileged background that majorities grow up in, you are quite simply less likely to achieve academically, not because you're stupid, not because you're less capable, but because you're facing an enormous amount of adversity. And finally, someone is acknowledging that, and that is a good thing, and that makes me feel good, and that's why I'm going to accept the award. Right, so, finally, after years of being disadvantaged, finally someone's acknowledging this, and finally someone is trying to rectify this disadvantage, and that's going to make me feel good, it's going to make me feel positive towards the majority that's trying to acknowledge this disadvantage, it's going to make me feel proud, and I'm going to accept the award, right? But finally, there's a third reason I'm going to accept the award. So these were all rather selfish reasons, but also, I'm going to accept the award because it makes me feel good about being a role model for my community, right? For my sister, for my younger siblings. For anyone in my community that's younger than me, that might look up to me, etc., right? So especially in minority communities, especially, we talk a lot about Muslims, right? Especially in those minorities, we often have communities that are very close-knit, right? And that have very strong ties. And especially in those communities, I would be sending a particularly strong sign to people that are very close to me that it is possible to overcome adversity, and it is possible to overcome bullying, and it is possible to overcome all those disadvantages that we face in earlier life, right? And you can still get to the same level that majorities have been getting to with a much better privileged background and all these things, right? So it will make me feel proud because not only am I getting all these benefits for my own personal career, not only do I feel acknowledged in my ability to overcome adversity, but also I have the possibility to give hope and to give perspective to those people close to me, and that matters to me because I love these people and I want them to achieve just as much as I want myself to achieve, right? So, Madam Speaker, we believe that getting an award is good, and that unless you have huge reasons that cause you not to accept it, you will accept it. And we believe that government has not shown us at all why there's such negative consequences to accepting this award. And we believe that actually there's very positive consequences because it will make us feel acknowledged, it will make us feel valued, it will acknowledge the fact that we overcame adversity, and it will give us the opportunity to not only further our own career, but also be a role model for other people. And for all those reasons, Madam Speaker, we are so proud to host.
In this debate, we have talked about many things. We have considered the nature of an award, specifically the nature or the how can I say, the effects of the minority award specifically, and we haven't talked that much about values, and that's what we got from the second government table. And we find this the most important thing in this debate. The main 2 points of clash that I have identified are regarding the nature of the minority awards on one side, and on the second side, the identity and the segregation which these award leads to. But firstly, what we have heard from the opposition side is that we do not agree that there are lesser standards for these awards. But that is not even the question, and it is not the important thing. The important thing is that this kind of award leads to exclusion and segregation, because it emphasizes ethnic... no thanks, and be quiet please. It emphasizes ethnic differences, and these are not differences based on sorry. They're not differences based on quality, they're not differences based on the product, but they're based on skin color of the people, and we find this really insulting in a society and counterproductive. We can agree that the award might have some feel-good effect, and it can be a CV filler, as we have heard it called. It is tempting, but that is not the point. The point, what we are trying to prove is that this points out discrimination, because in a society where we have minorities, and the majority, we want to perceive this society as a whole, and we as the minority in a sort of ranking or categorization system would be prouder if we were the 10th team in the main break than if we were the first team in the EFL, because we have competed with everyone and showed our value.
Sir, before you move on, please.
Well, no thanks. So, on the first clash, which is the nature of minority work, we have heard that it supports, it gives appreciation, it induces motivation, it breaks barriers, but we have not quite seen the mechanism how this actually works. So yeah, on one side it may be a CV filler for the individual, and it may lift him up in the professional sphere, but looking at the broader picture, this leads to the exclusion, and it points out that, hey, this is the minority, they are different. So it kind of causes this disbalance, and we do not think that it leads to the levelization, if I can call it, of the whole society. So we are emphasizing the differences, and what is also important, and which is the second clash, we are imposing the identity. So the person has to be labeled as a Muslim in a society. He is being ripped of his choices to be whatever he wants to be. It's like they're making... Sorry? Yeah, I'll take your question.
Okay, this award is still focusing on their achievement. It's not focusing on their minorities. It's still about their academic reputation. It's not about how dark their skins are. Please.
Yeah, but based on the color of their skin, they're put in a bucket, and from that bucket they are picked on the basis of academic achievement. So, but we are against this bucket itself, because we want to put all the people in the same category. We are against exclusion, because we feel it is very harmful and can only cause regression in the process of integration that we are facing right now. The world has never been more interconnected, and we feel that these kind of measures are only counterproductive and lead to more segregation of things. So we have also heard from the second table that how this imposes identity. It imposes identity on the minority, but what is more even important, the majority is putting the boundaries not only on the minority, but on themselves as well. Because if they perceive the minority as someone different, as someone who should compete in a totally different category from their own, then they're not making it possible for the minority to assimilate and to be in a cohesive. Yes.
Well, as I said in the beginning, the award is not going to abolish discrimination, but you're assuming something much more extreme. You're assuming that an award like that is actually going to intensify discrimination to such a level that we won't have...
No. I'm not saying that for a second. On the point of discrimination, discrimination is present, but are we going to make it disappear if we give an award to a kid who has been abused? Well, good job, kid. Go back to school where you get your ass kicked once again. But hey, you have an award. The problem with the whole mechanism is that it points out to him that he is different from the majority, and that is the reason why he is being victimized in the first place. We feel that there should be a means of educating the whole society of the cultural differences and kind of making a melting pot in some way mechanism so that they can all be integrated, and we do not want to cause exclusion and segregation, and I just talked in circles a lot. Thanks.
Mr. Speaker, I really feel the need to spend about 30 seconds of my speech by rereading the motion. This House, as a nominee of such an award, would not accept it. Therefore, in my speech, I will be talking about how I have already been nominated to this already existing award and whether I accept it or not whether we should have this award that already exists, not whether the society is impacted or not, but rather how I am impacted by the way society views this. And in my speech, I will be talking about main 4 points. The first one is whether this is discriminating or not, whether I am discriminated or not. The second is whether I feel insulted or I feel happy. The third one is whether I will be motivated by this award or rather the opposite. And the fourth, how I care about what the majority and my minority thinks about this. Now, I will try to clarify what the government has brought us, but it is very confusing about the standards we are talking about, because first government made it very clear in both their speeches that we are talking about an award that's easier to get, because they also brought us some analysis on how the value of this award would actually go down because it's easier to get. And the closing government made it very clear that they think we are not at all talking about an award with a lower standard, that we are not talking about differences in this award, we are just talking about skin color or where the people come from. Now, about whether I will feel discriminated or not. We heard that this would be segregating the community, that this would be counterproductive, but what do I actually get out of this? Because I'm not sure whether I am just a black person or whether I am me, who I actually just went to college to Austria, and actually German is my third language. And I actually got an award in writing in German, but I only won on the category of second language. And I didn't feel discriminated. I felt good because I felt that even if I wasn't good enough to actually win, to actually beat all the native speakers, I am still good at what I'm doing. And I should still try to be better because I do have a chance, because I am still good enough. And I'm not talking about breaking in a tournament where basically everyone has English as a second speaker because I'm Serbian or because I'm Austrian or because I'm Romanian. Because in this tournament, I think except for a few native speakers, everyone is basically on the same level. We're talking about differences that are actually very strong ones, like where you have what culture have you been raised in, because it's actually not the same for me to learn in a language that is my third or my second language, as it is for someone that has been raised speaking that language and only that language, because the same things will not come across the same way, because it's not as easy for me to talk to you in English today as it is for my partner that has been doing this in college in England for 4 years. I will move on to my second point now, whether I feel insulted or I feel happy. Why should I be insulted? I mean, I would maybe be insulted if someone tells me that I suck because I wasn't born in Austria, but why would I be insulted because someone tells me that on my level I am very good, that I'm actually trying, that I can be good? I'm actually happy that someone cares about me, you know? I'm actually happy that the university doesn't see me as someone who just pays a fee to maintain them. I'm happy that they do acknowledge my differences, that they do acknowledge the culture I come from, and they do care about me. Whether this will be motivating or not, how I have already mentioned in my first point, just because I won a local contest doesn't mean that I won't try to be even better and win a national contest, because the first government made it very clear that the only reason they think it's easier to get this award is because there are simply fewer people competing, and I really hope that they actually meant that this is the only reason why it would be easier to get it. And assuming they are right about this, then I think the example of local competition compared to national one is quite relevant, because it simply relies on the same criteria of simply fewer people competing. And just because I didn't win the national award from the first time, but I won the local award in the beginning, does not mean that I will not try further to compete for the national one. Yes, please.
But what if I don't feel at all like a Muslim? I want to be a German, I want to be a German at whole, at point, and I don't feel like a Muslim, but I'm recognized only as a Muslim, as a state recognized.
Oh, okay. Thank you for reminding me this. I actually forgot about this and the discriminating. That actually, what's most important about this is that, yes, okay, we might be discriminated, but as my partner has pointed out, I am positively discriminated, because I cannot erase the fact that I wasn't born in a certain culture or in a certain country. I cannot change who I am, and the three ways of the majority to deal with it is to either accept it, either ignore it, or either suppress me for that. And we think that one of the reasons while people should actually be positively discriminated is because they have been suppressed for so long. And on the psychology of the individual, how does it actually work? Because of the fact that this has been suppressed for so long, actually people tend to ignore the things that they don't want to see. They ignore the things they don't like. They ignore the things they don't care about. And because some minorities have been suppressed for so long, because some minorities are viewed as less valuable than other ones, as my partner has pointed out, it is good to positively discriminate them, to show them that we value them, that we accept what they are, that we care about who they are, and that in no way makes me feel bad about myself, but actually makes me feel good about being something that I am, instead of just trying to change something that I simply cannot change, because I can't change where I've been born. I cannot change the religion. I mean, I could change the religion I belong to, but I don't want to feel obliged to do this because of social pressure. And how what majority thinks about this would impact me? Well, the thing is that if I accept this award or not will not change the way the majority sees this award. But if I do get it, then I would care more about my community that awarded my award, because, like, you know, I feel good in my community because they accept me, and I would care much more about them acknowledging me than the majority just disagreeing anyway, even if I don't get this award. So, because I would not feel discriminated, because I would be really happy, because this would actually only motivate me to achieve further, and because I don't care about the majority as much, we think that this motion should not stand. Thank you.